Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stew again. This time we're going to talk about the DualShock 4 motion controls and how to figure them out. Before we start, it's important to know that the control settings can be accessed at the Creation menu under Preferences. The first thing I want to show you is what happens when you turn the camera speed all the way down. You can see it's moving like molasses. It will be very difficult getting around a scene like this, so I wouldn't recommend it. Now let's take a look at the opposite end of the spectrum with camera speed set to 10. We're flying around the space easily, but the speed is probably a little high for most people. I like it a little slower, personally. I'm going to set the camera at the middle ground, and let's see the same thing with the imp sensitivity setting. Imp sensitivity determines how much the controller is moved in order to move the imp cursor with the gyro.
Those are enormous movements. You're going to give yourself carpal tunnel.
These are my reactions on the stream to imp sensitivity being set to 1.
Someone on the subreddit suggested dialing it down like this, but, this is like doing aerobics. This is crazy. Can't play like that.
So let's see the opposite end of the spectrum with imp sensitivity set to 10. I'm not having much of a problem at this setting using large gestures to cover large areas. This would be tricky with fine adjustment though. I can understand why someone would be intimidated by it. I'm going to go back in and set both camera speed and imp sensitivity to 5. The imp is more manageable, but for me the camera speed is way too slow. If you're having problems with the controls, I would recommend maybe turning the imp sensitivity down a notch or two until you get used to them, but a slower camera is going to make moving around too difficult. Now I'm going to change settings to the levels I use. When I started early access, I found that my beta settings were too low, especially for camera speed. However, now it's occasionally a little too sensitive. These settings are a bit of a balancing act, but they're also definitely worth looking at as an aid to getting a handle on the control scheme. Settings are set. Let's talk about controls you may not know or have not heard of and how they relate to mastering the motion controls.
What I figured out was that R2, R1, and L2 all grab stuff. Right? But when you do that, different things happen. And different things happen depending on whether you're using the motion controls or the sticks. Right? So if you grab something with R2 and you use the left stick, it moves it closer and farther away. If you have R2 down and you use the right stick, it rotates the camera.
To be clear here, with R2 depressed and the left stick side to side, you're rotating the object around a position centered at the camera.
At the same time, if you have R2 down and you use the motion controls, it's left to right and up and down, or if you're at the right angle, back and forth. As far as I can tell, that switches as soon as you hit 45 degrees. If you grab with R1 and you use motion controls, now you're rotating around the object with the camera centered on the object, right? But if you grab it with R1 and you use the sticks, the left stick moves you closer and farther just like R2, but the right stick rotates camera around it. If you grab it with L2 and use motion controls, pitch on the motion controls is pitch on the object. Yeah, so if you grab it with L2, pitch on the motion is pitch, but yaw kind of yaws and rolls at the same time, and then roll kind of yaws. So that right there I can understand kind of throwing people off.
When you have L2 depressed and use the left stick, up and down will pitch the object you're grabbing, and the left stick side to side will yaw and roll the object simultaneously. Ideally, you'd want to be able to control all 3 axes of rotation independently though.
But anyway, I mean, the point is, you can grab with all of these. This is R2, R1, L2. And depending on which one you grab with, and whether you use the motion controls or the stick, they all do something different, right? And kind of figuring that out has got to be screwing people up. So one conclusion that I came to is that if you have R2 depressed, you should not ever be using the sticks. And that is because the combination of what the sticks do in that mode is very strange. It's and not intuitive. It's closer, nearer with the left stick, and then the camera's rotating. But check this out, right? The camera's rotating in the y-axis around the grab point of the object, but then left to right in the x-axis, it's rotating around the camera, right? And that's totally counterintuitive. So I would say the number one thing is, when you have R2 down, just don't ever touch the sticks. You know, you should only be using the motion controls at that point. What I would use the sticks for is moving around the space. So you're going to use left and right stick, move around the space, and then L1 to elevate yourself. And you can also use it to change the angle of the camera. Once you get in to where you want to be, you should only be using the motion controls. So let's say I want to work from here. Now I should stop touching the sticks, right? And I want to move this to here. Right? Then I want to get a different angle. Now I'm using the sticks, right? Now I want to work from here using the motion controls. Now I want to be around here using the sticks. Now I want to move this, or I want to adjust the angle of it or whatever, right? Motion controls. And I think that's where people are going wrong, is constantly mixing the two up and not knowing what's happening with whatever button it is they're depressing at the time. Okay, but another thing I want to show is, you know, people keep asking to have the motion controls removed, but it's really important to use them. So let me just scope into this. I was talking to someone that I know from Project Spark, and he was saying, you know, this is actually an issue with Dreams, is that the controls are hard to get to it and hard to get used to. And, you know, as an artist, you have to be comfortable with your brush, because he was having a hard time with the motion controls too, because he just started. You know, and what I told him is, the motion controls are your brush, right? Because you can't do this with the other stuff, right? This is your paintbrush. You can see I'm doing that with one hand. I think it's really important not to avoid the motion controls. You know, you have to get used to them, and they're a big part of creating stuff.
Alright, that's all there is for now. I hope you found this helpful. I have a few videos in the works about sculpting I've done in the past week, so I'll see you next time.